Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good
Good morning.
Yes. Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. Dr. Jenkins, did you see my email?
I did. I just sent it to you.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
I couldn't find it.
No problem.
I see Commissioner Coy. I don't want to wait too much longer.
Commissioner Parker is here as well.
I see Parker. I see Muhammad. Okay, we can get started. Good morning again. This is Committee Chair Chantel Roberts, and I'd like to welcome you to the September 17th, 2024 meeting of the Operations Committee.
15-minute of a meeting. Like your sweater. Looks cozy.
Hi, Commissioner. Could you mute yourself, please? Thank you. If you have not done so, please mute your phone. Anyone who does not mute their phone may be muted by the call moderator or removed from the call. Additionally, if you are not a board member or the CEO and her staff, please turn your video off. I will now read a roll call of the board to identify who is on the call. Please identify yourself first before speaking for the record. Commissioner Ames Messenger.
Ames Messenger present.
Commissioner Coy.
Commissioner Coy present.
Commissioner Muhammad.
Mohammed present.
Commissioner Parker.
Parker present.
And I am present as well. Members of the public who would like to provide public comment to this committee can do so by signing up before 9:00 a.m. the Thursday before the meeting until 5:00 p.m. the Monday before the meeting date. Individuals or groups interested in providing comments to the committee may sign up one of three ways. 1. Contact the board office at 443-642-2095 or visit the board office at 200 East North Avenue, room 406, or by emailing the board office at schoolboard@bcps.k12.md.us. Up to 5 individuals will be given the opportunity to provide comment to the Operations Committee. Speakers will be granted 3 minutes. All public comments should address operations-related materials, and sign up will not be permitted on the day of the meeting. In addition, the chat function will not be operable during our meeting. If you have any follow-up questions or feedback and did not sign up in advance to provide them during the committee meeting, please sign up at schoolboard@bcps.k12.md.us, and the board office staff will be happy to provide you with a response. Good morning, everyone. We have a rather full agenda today. I ask that we all try to stick very close to the allotted presentation window. And without further ado, we can get started with our first presentation of the morning, the budget milestone calendar.
Good morning, Vice Chair Roberts, Commissioners and City School Partners. I'm Stephanie Fay, the Budget Director at City Schools. Nice to see you all. This will be super quick. We are here, fiscal 26, believe it or not. I know we just started the school year for school year 24-25, but our budget season kicks off in a few weeks. And just some quick highlights, you all have this milestone calendar. We're kicking off with enrollment adjustments in the next couple of weeks, beginning of October. The priority engagement sessions at the school level will start in mid-October, and they go for several months. They go through several different versions of their sessions. And then, we get our state projections from Maryland State in middle to end of January, and then we start the hard work where our budget tools open, the allocations go to schools, we have our budget collaboratives, we then go through the process of really approving all of the different budgets and working on the different information, and then we start our presentations back to the board level once all of the budgets are approved and in our system. So really quick overview. Any questions? Happy to take those at this time.
Thank you so much for the overview. I will, are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
We can now transition to the AMP implementation update.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Abel, Director of HC Systems and Strategy, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Kenneth Carter, Jessie Papia. I'm not sure if she's on the call yet, but we are here today to provide an update on the Administrative Modernization Project. It's a mouthful, so we refer to it as AMP. So this project aligns to strategic priorities 3 and 5. We are
Sarah?
focused. Yeah,
Do you have a deck that you're showing?
I do, but I didn't share it. I apologize. It's not Monday, but clearly I'm stuck in Monday. Okay, hopefully you all can see this.
We can, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. So board strategic priorities 3 and 5, we are replacing the infrastructure, so our technical infrastructure that runs the administrative side of the house for city schools. We are replacing all of those obsolete technologies, and we are slated to go live at the end of this year with our final phase. So as I just mentioned, we have had the same system for 24 years. So our current system was built in the 1990s. And so we are long overdue for this massive overhaul. Last summer, we went live with our financial modules. And what we're speaking about today is everything related to human capital and our payroll systems. Our ultimate goal is to have a single source of truth. So we are integrating the systems. We are not relying on human beings to click buttons and download spreadsheets to move the work. We are going to let our technical systems do the work for us so we can be more efficient and effective in our jobs. So phase 1 of this process, and this is just a quick recap of where we've been. Phase 1 was Fusion Financials. That is currently live. This went live last July, and we are continuing to develop and support end users with everything related to the dollars and how we spend and track every single dollar that comes into and out of city schools. Phase 2 is our budget application, and so we are continuing to work on that. But as a part of our go live in December, we are going to be moving forward with our budget amendment app. And so the budget amendment application is how we move money. So we move money from one budget string to another budget string so schools and offices can create positions, buy pencils, do all of the things that they need to do to support our students. And so the budget application will be moving, the budget amendment application is moving forward. Phase 3, which is our performance management system, current state, that's OPMS. That's actually not current state because we just went live on the 11th. So Jessie will join us in a moment to talk a little bit about CHARM, our new performance management system. The big go live that we're really focused on right now is our core human capital management system. So core HCM Fusion, we go live December 14th. And so that relates to everything that touches employees from recruitment to retirement. That includes payroll, that includes time and attendance. So this is a large implementation, and we are in those final stages. Go live is December 14th. Lastly, on the horizon, we have our learning management system. And so that will go live next July. Canvas and Kickup, we're really excited. We just completed the process with selecting them, and we will begin development soon. So with that, Jessie, I'm hopeful, is on the call and can share a quick update on CHARM.
Yes. Hi. Thanks, Sarah. Good morning, everybody. So I'm really excited to be able to tell you about CHARM, provide an update. And so as part of this larger rehaul, we have invested in a more modern platform for employee evaluations to be conducted. It has gone live. And so all of our school year 24-25 employee evaluation tasks, forms, important milestones will be completed in CHARM. And make sure that folks have access and have the ability to engage. And we're going to really leverage some of the more modern features that are going to help folks save time as they're engaging in evaluations, because we want more of that time, instead of be focused on clicking buttons or finding resources, to actually go into more reflective conversations and more meaningful feedback. And so this really began in terms of our go live as we were getting ready for Ops Institute back at the beginning of August, where we were able to provide an overview, an initial kind of foundation setting and training for our school leaders. August 21st, or during that week of systemic PD, we pushed out an asynchronous, virtual at their fingertips required training for our school-based staff. We've been promoting that with folks at district office. Just last week, we pushed out a desktop icon for Charm. So everybody now has it on a City Schools supported device, and the fall forms are available. And we are just making sure that folks are completing that required training. All of this is giving a lot of lead time for the first time there is an evaluation related deadline, which is at the end of October for this year. And that is around initial planning conferences and goal setting for folks. But so far, our start has been strong. People have access. We've had as of last week, over 2,400 folks have engaged in the training. We have almost an 85% success rate on the training. And so we're just going to keep reinforcing, making sure folks are getting in so it sets the foundation. They understand some of the basic reminders around evaluations and how they should be conducted, and also how they can navigate the new tech platform. Okay. Any questions, please let me know at the end of the presentation, but I think it's back to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Jesse. So our Charm system is live. It is functioning. We're very excited about that. And now our focus shifts to final testing. And so in order for us to flip that switch and go live on December 14th, we have to ensure that the system works. We've been developing this for years, and these are the final checks to make sure everything is functioning as we expect it to. Most critically, we are focused on payroll. Every aspect of this process is important, but we know payroll and people's checks are critical. So we are wrapping up our parallel testing, and there's a lot of tech speak in this, so I apologize. But we are moving into a phase of population sample testing where we take specific employees across the organization. We look at what their paycheck is in our test environment, and we look at what their paycheck is in real life, in production, and they have to match. If they don't match, that's where we have to focus on why don't they match and do all of that investigation. So this is a big undertaking for all of our administrative teams, IT, human capital, and payroll. We work together as a unit to investigate all of the issues that come up. And so population sample testing actually kicks off on Tuesday next week. And so that is the final check. We have our UKG model testing, and my colleague Kenny will share a little bit more about that, but that's really focused on change management and the behavior of punching. We need people to punch. We need people to punch. We need to know what they should be paid. And those two variables is how we pay people. So that is really critical. And then our last big round of testing is user acceptance testing. So this is the phase where we look at, at the end of the day, how do all of these workflows work? Are notifications functioning? Are the transactions being completed? And we're also going to bring in some end users to actually do some testing specifically around P-Star. And so that all actually kicked off yesterday. And our sessions begin next Monday. So we're doing a lot of dual testing, and it's just really that critical to make sure we're ready for go live. So this is just a bit more detail. I won't go into all of this, but these are all of the elements we are testing with our payroll system. So we have to have confidence, 100%, that each of these different aspects of our payroll and time and attendance system and the integrations, because we're not relying on people. So those technical integrations have to be flowing. So data goes back and forth for us to say City Schools is ready to flip the switch and move to our new payroll system. So just wanted to make sure we shared that, because this is the work that is going to be commencing on Tuesday and will go through the end of October. And with that, I will pass it over to my colleague, Kenny Carter, to share a little bit about UKG model testing.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everybody. Model testing is going to continue on with the remaining district offices starting September 23rd. With that said, I have to give you a little background. We started in the summer with 8 schools that were in summer programming, and we had 4 offices in central office that have been in model testing and continue on with model testing. We have also taken a select group of folks that we went where they are. I'm literally at the PDC right now doing training for for the maintenance folks. We've done it in person for transportation. We've done it virtually with everybody in FNS. So we're given extra attention to the folks that we feel like we know they're going to have extra questions, and they've had them, but we feel like they're comfortable and they're going to be ready to really move forward and help us in with especially not just model testing and the behavior part of it, but also with the population sample testing. As you can see, the schedule that's laid out, we will have CLN 1, 5, and 9. There's some special orgs that are going to do more with the population sample testing that Sarah spoke to. But the dates are laid out very strategically. They're at the start of the pay period so that, we can just make sure that the data is received and everybody understands that if they will click properly, we will have a very true reading of the system is definitely working the way we want it to work, and we can move forward successfully. Next slide, please. Perfect. So how is it working, and what do we do when we go from punching to practice to punch to pay? Well, as we lay it out in the practice system, pretty much everything is going to be exactly like it is when we get to December. So everything that folks are doing now, when we get to December, there's very little change at all. And by the time we get to December for go live, everything that everybody's done in the practice instance, they won't even know the difference that we're in an actual live environment, because they have created habits over the course of the months that they've been in model testing, and everything is just as it's supposed to be. The biggest thing, when you go to the bottom of this slide, approvers approve, reject time off, that's when it's going to be the biggest difference that folks are going to see. But as we're telling them in training, the thing that is so transparent in this system is that nobody in the entire district can have anything happen to their pay sheet that they don't know about. And so you could just see the excitement in folks' face when we talk to them and we explain how the training works and how the system works. The transparency part of it makes everybody super excited, because everybody wants to be paid on time and fairly. Next slide, please. And then communication is the key to success in everything. So change champions that we have, we are going to continue to have bi-weekly meetings with them and email with them. And as we get closer to go live, that communication can sometimes increase, but it's the cascading of messaging and that messaging being consistent that is super, super important. All staff, they'll start to get bi-weekly communication, and then they have information. They know that they have questions, they can contact us and we'll get back to them. School leaders will get monthly and quarterly updates, and then district office will give quarterly updates. But as we get closer to go live, there will be, just relentless information. We don't feel like there's any way that you can over communicate when you're talking about pay. Sarah, back to you.
Thanks, Kenny. So this is all the work that is happening in the background, all of our testing. And now we actually have to walk through how we're going to cut over. So we have to actually decommission EBS, which is our current system, and we have to turn on Fusion. And that requires us to go through several stages in order for us to open up the new system and have all of the data be correct, have paychecks be correct. And so this is a multi-step process. And, today kind of marks the end of the high-level communications with all leadership in this organization. So after today, we've met with every single central office department. We've met with all principals, all school leaders. We're doing individual outreach. And so this cutover that I'm going to walk you through very briefly, this information has already gone out across the district. And now we are just focused on supporting end users to make sure we hit these important deadlines. And the real question is why? Why do we have to do this cutover, and what will this bring to us? And so what you see here is a high-level overview of our new future state. So current state, we have all of our candidates, and this is our core function in human capital, how we bring people into this organization, how we move people internally. People apply in our applicant tracking system, and then we have a team of people who type all of that data into our EBS system, which is our current ERP system that is on site. It's the massive server. And so that is kind of how we hire people now. And so over the course of the summer, we hired and processed over 1,200 applicants manually. And in addition to that, we processed an additional 400 plus contractors. And so we have a lot of movement in the system. So over 1,600 transactions, we manually entered into the system. Those people report to their assignments. They sign in manually again into a sign-in book to record their time. And then that data is then manually typed into our payroll system. That's our current state. It is slow. There are bottlenecks. There are many different challenges with operating in a system that is not integrated. Our future state that will kick off on December 14th still has our applicant tracking system. People apply. What's different is that we actually have a data file that goes over to our Fusion system daily. Multiple times a day, we have data passing back into the system, and that becomes the employee record. So no longer are we relying on people to manually type all of that information into the system. That employee record then is used in our UKG time and attendance, what Kenny was just referring to. So people work in their positions, whatever their assignment is for city schools. They punch in every day. That data is recorded. They request to use leave time. That is also recorded in UKG, and that data goes seamlessly back and forth. There's no human beings who are typing that data back and forth, so we have that integration. At the end of a pay period, the employee reviews their time card, they click submit, and then that flows over to our Fusion payroll system, and that is how we pay our employees. And so our future state is integrated. And to get to this point, we have to decommission our current system, and there are 4 stages to that. So our first stage, and this is what's kicking off next Tuesday, we have our dual entry phase. And so as I shared previously, we have a lot of testing going on. And so for the next about 6 weeks, we're going to be dual entering transactions, which means for every hire we make, for every assignment change we make, we are recording that in our system of record, our current state EBS. And then we also do that in Fusion. We have to be testing to ensure that the system is ready to go. And so this dual entry process is critical. It's required to move through the decommissioning process. And we just have to make sure that all of the data is correct before we move to go live. This will impact processing of transactions because we have to do double the work to ensure our system is ready to go. So dual entry kicks off on Tuesday. The next phase in the process, and this is the key message that was shared with all school leaders, all district leaders, hiring managers, people who submit P-STARs. 11/1 is our deadline to make any changes in our current system. So any change that would impact an employee record and their payroll, promotions, new hires, transfers, all of those things have to be submitted by 11/1. That is the most critical date because we have to make those changes in our system. And then we're going to shut down our system and convert all of our data to Fusion. 11/1 is that critical date. We need any changes that are happening submitted by 11/1 so that we know exactly where people are going to be working as we move into the start date freeze. While we are switching systems, we cannot have employee movement. And this includes temps, contingent workers, or our contractors, any new position creation, any salary changes, all of these things freeze during our cutover. So this is our December through the beginning of January. It is same seats on the bus at city schools. We need all changes in by 11/1, and then we move into the start date freeze because we have to move all of the data and open up our new system. Our new system opens on December 14th. And then the first day for all new hires, all employee movement is going to be Monday, January 13th. That's when our system fully opens and people can move, people can transfer, we can have all of our new employees starting. The one thing to call out specifically is that during this process, it is just a freeze on starting. It is not a freeze on interviewing. So hiring managers, offices, principals can interview candidates. They can do background checks. They can do reference checks. They can submit all the paperwork to say this is my candidate I want to hire. All of that's completely fine. We take all the paperwork and then that person will start on January 13th. And so these are the 4 stages we go through to shut down our current system and to open our new system. And so it's really critical that this message is shared with every level of the organization. We've done that, and we're continuing to do individual outreach, providing data to schools, to principals, to district leaders to ensure that they are very clear that 11/1 is that final deadline. If they have temps working during this period, they need to submit all those temp extensions prior to the cutoff so that we know everyone who's working for city schools. We have everything recorded in the system. They can report to work, they can be paid on time, and we will reopen the system on the 14th, and then we'll have our first start date on January 13th. So this is our cutover. And lastly, I believe Kenny, to close us out, will share our last few next steps. Or he may have gone back to training. So we are going to finish our rounds of systems testing, as I shared before. Sorry, Kenny, I stole your thunder.
Go ahead.
We will continue. Kenny and his team is working on all of our development, our resources, our training guides, all of those amazing things that help people be successful. Kenny's team is taking that away, and they will have all of that shared and pushed out to the district. And then we just have targeted support and communications. We are reaching directly to end users. We're reaching out to the P-STAR submitters, our hiring managers, our district leaders to make sure they're very clear what's happening. They hit the 11/1 deadline, and we can open up our new system seamlessly. So with that, that is the end of our presentation, and we welcome any questions from our commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I'll open the floor for questions. Now, that was quite the robust presentation with some very ambitious next steps. Commissioner Coy, then Commissioner Parker.
Yeah, thank you for the updates here. And my question is, if there's any naturally occurring opportunities similar to some of the sessions that I've attended in the past in person, when there's the planning and the sort of visioning, I would be interested in attending some of the upcoming, either if there's trainings. It sounds like a number of the trainings are just virtual and people are participating in the trainings. So I don't know if there's a way to get an insight into that. But in the absence of there being a naturally occurring place that I could show up and just sort of be observing as it's progressing through, I would love to schedule some time to just like walk through and have that insight as it's progressing. You know, and just yeah, thank you for all the work that you all are doing. This is obviously complex and multifaceted, and I'm interested in observing. Some of the areas that I certainly have questions around, I think are out of scope of what the current transition is happening, but do relate to also some of the teacher certification, classification review, you know, advancements, some of those processes as well. But understand that those sound like they're outside the scope of this, but certainly have some questions around that as well. And over the course of this year, I do think you know, human capital and some of these pieces are going to be an area that I'm asking and interested in understanding more.
Commissioner Coy, do you have a question for the record, or are you going to follow up with them in writing?
Yes, my question is, if there's a naturally occurring opportunity to please share that, and otherwise for us to schedule a time and separately.
Thank you,
Sarah,
Commissioner Parker. Oh no, for the sake of time at the top of the meeting,
Sure.
I asked us to keep these succinct. So if you all could follow up in writing with his question. Thank you, Commissioner Parker, then Commissioner Mohammed. Then we're going to transition to the next presentation. You're muted. I can't hear you. Log out and come back. Okay, Commissioner Mohammed.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the presentation, as this is hard and detailed work. I think that lessons learned from implementing financial fusion gave me some insight into the experience of this cutover. So I have a significant concern, and hopefully it can be addressed. during this cutover, we're not going to be able to bring contractors on and staff on between essentially November and January. During that period, even though I understand that it's needed, during that period, what happens if we look at, per se, in special ed, when we have a student that comes in or students that come in during that period who have significant challenges and they need a level of support, or you have staff members for whatever reason who may take FMLA and we are still required to support those students, but we have this hold. Do we have an out to make sure that as a district, we're still meeting the needs of our students while implementing our changes that are absolutely needed? And love the work. Just want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students at all times, even while this cutover is happening.
Did the team capture that?
Yeah.
Sarah? Okay.
Yep. I don't know if there's time to respond here or should I provide a written response? I think the short answer, and it's much longer than this, is that in some areas where we anticipate there being challenges like that, we do have to overhire in anticipation of this. So to have like auxiliary staff that we have who we can deploy to support in those hotspots should an employee leave the organization, someone goes out and leave. That's the short answer, but it is a much larger plan to support in that. But we're well aware of that. And I can say that too detailed for this presentation, but if the office or school does get in all of their hiring documentation by 11/1, we do have 2 start dates. So there's a start date on the 18th and there's a start date on December 2nd. But we need everything in by the 1st so we can actually get that into the system. So the freeze is actually a little bit shorter than that, but I absolutely hear you. And you've heard that from every leader we've talked to. That is a deep concern. And so we're working specifically with departments we know have had challenges around this, especially during this time of year, to overhire a bit and have an auxiliary support staff that we can deploy to meet the needs of our students.
Commissioner
appreciate
Mohammed,
that.
is this something that you want us to continue a conversation, like an additional updates around this transition?
Absolutely. I appreciate that. If we can continue this conversation, as this is going to be a major concern, and hearing that it's a concern of all of our school leaders, it just further alarms me that there's some work that needs to be done. So look forward to that continued conversation and work around, and being able to hear that our leaders are comfortable with whatever we come up with to be able to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you all for the presentation. We can transition to the next presentation, the Supplemental Appropriation University Partnership Support, University Partner Supported Health Suites.
Yes, good morning. This is Mary Ann Cox, Deputy Chief Financial Officer for City Schools. And I wanted to provide some contextual information on this request, and then the programmatic details will be provided by the Chief of Staff Office. This is a supplemental appropriation where we are asking the board's permission to use money that would be set aside in the FY 2024 assigned fund balance for this matter, which is related to the amounts owed and unpaid to city schools by the Baltimore City Health Department for certain nursing services in 2025. It's my understanding that the nursing services relate to the health suites. And I believe that Kim Coleman is going to provide the programmatic information on that. I just wanted to bring to your attention that we are asking board approval to expend these amounts, which would be held in assigned fund balance. The CEO, as the board's designee, has the authority to place items in assigned fund balance. But when we want to use those funds, we come to the board for approval. So as you can see here, this amount of assigned fund balance that we would be asking to use is $2,370,700. So we will be pulling that from the money set aside in assigned fund balance as we close the books for 2024. And there's a little bit of narrative there regarding how we wanted to spend these monies on health suites through the partners, through the nursing service partners. So okay, here is the support documentation, the programmatic support documentation for this particular request. And you know, it's available on the website for anyone to review should they prefer. And also Kim Coleman is available to offer any additional information if someone should have a question. So
Yep. I'm happy to talk through it if anyone would like an overview, or I could just address questions if that's preferred.
I'm sorry, for a matter of record, who is that?
Kim Coleman, Special
Thank
Assistant to the
you.
Chief of Staff.
Thank you. I'll open the floor for questions from the committee. Commissioner Coy?
Yes, my question is relating to the degree of concern and the risk of not receiving these funds from the city. They are certainly long overdue, as you all note here, but curious if you would have thoughts to express and share here on the level of concern we should have about these not being paid versus just being delayed in payment.
It is my understanding that City Schools is actively engaging in communications with the health department. And I believe that, you know, they are to provide a response to, you know, these type of items. They see them just as we do. And I believe that there may have been a question about the interpretation of the cost per school, per health suite. And we are working with the health department to resolve that.
And I
Vice
would just
Chair,
add,
Ro-
this is, can I
oh,
just add, this is Allison Perkins Cohen, Chief of Staff. We have, Commissioner Coy, it's a good question. We've been meeting with them. We had another meeting yesterday. I'm hoping that we're nearing agreement to get paid, not just for this year, but the prior years. So I'm hoping we're getting to a better place based on yesterday's meeting, but appreciate the concern, and then we share it too, that we need to make sure that we do get actually paid for the services that that students are receiving.
Chief Doherty, were you going to offer remarks as well?
thank you, Vice Chair. Chris Doherty, CFO. Now that the Chief of Staff has weighed in, I have nothing to add to hers. I was going to make very similar comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Commissioner Coy, thank you for elevating that and level setting us. Any additional remarks from the committee? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. We can now transition to the capital improvement program. Will we be combining the CIP and the CMP presentations? Are we just going to run concurrent?
They'll be separate, yes.
Oh, okay. Good morning.
Good morning. Let me share my screen. All right, my name is Maureen Gershberg. I'm the Director of Strategy and Facilities Planning, and today we'll be going over the FY26 Capital Improvement Program requests, as well as giving a major projects update. This aligns with Board Priority 3. And historically, this presentation has focused specifically on CIP funding. So while we will go over that specifically, we'll also go over the larger capital funding landscape. The current maintenance and capital budget's approximately $375 million less than what is needed when using industry standards. You'll see this slide in multiple presentations from facilities, since it highlights how the need is much greater than available resources, which means we often must make tough decisions when determining the allocation of these limited resources. Capital decisions are informed by both physical system conditions as well as district priorities. Examples of physical system considerations are inspections, preventative maintenance reports, work orders, and just general life cycle information. District priorities include annual review decisions, the CEFMP, Comprehensive Educational Facilities Master Plan, as well as the CMP, Comprehensive Maintenance Plan, which Monique will be presenting next. The majority of City Schools capital funds do come from the state. So on the left, you can see our anticipated funding for FY26, our annual funding. And while our one-time funding sources have been crucial in bringing a large number of our facilities up to 21st century standards, we rely upon the annual funding to maintain the majority of our portfolio, as well as those new buildings when they come online. So the annual funding is crucial when we look at how we're allocating resources. This is a timeline of those annual sources. You'll see that the CIP requests go in the fall, and then we find out in the spring. That's because CIP is tied to the state budget. And so they'll let us know an anticipated number in the fall, but it doesn't get set in stone until the spring. So when Governor Moore first came on, there was an extra, I think, 25 million that ended up coming to us come spring. That did not happen last year, and it is unlikely to happen this year. But just keep that in mind when you think of that schedule of us putting in the request for CIP funding in the fall, but then not finding out from the state until the spring. A huge source of funding in recent years of annual funding has been the Healthy Schools Fund. The legislation had put 90 million into that fund for the entire state, and Baltimore City was guaranteed half of that. So you'll see that the past couple of years, we've gotten $45 million each year that we're able to put to specific projects such as roofs, windows, doors, HVAC. Healthy Schools also has less restrictions than CIP, and so we're strategic when we make decisions on which projects receive what type of funding. And we want to highlight this just because it's been so significant, especially when you compare it to the CIP funding we've been receiving. However, FY26 is the last year of guaranteed funding for Healthy Schools. The funding ends this FY26, and they're looking to continue it. The state's looking to continue it going forward, but there's not going to be a guarantee that Baltimore City gets half of that funding. And so it's been great, but just going forward, we're not sure how it's going to pan out in terms of the amount of Healthy School funding we're going to receive. However, we still have that CIP, which we'll be getting. This is a summary of the quantities of projects that we're putting in the CIP request this year, both major projects, which are replacements, renovation additions, or modulars, and systemic projects such as air conditioning, heat, elevators, fire alarm, fire safety, multi-systemic projects, roofs, windows, doors. When we develop our project list, we start by carrying over projects that have received prior funding. We then pull out anything that we might be able to cover with Healthy Schools. We add in projects where our computerized maintenance management system, our CMMS, has flagged an item is nearing the end of its life cycle. And then we also do a final review to make sure our list is meeting district priorities. This is a map showing the geographic spread of the CIP projects that we're putting in here, as well as the numbers by quadrant, overlaid on top of our community conditions index. So let's take a step back now. We are focusing on CIP projects. So now we're going to look at our major projects as a whole. If you look at all the projects that we've completed, have received funding, and are also planning to ask funding for, that's about 46 projects. The City Schools has completed about 33 of those since the beginning of about 2010. The approximate cost has been about 1.2 billion. And you can see at the bottom the differences based upon funding source, as well as their current status. One of the changes that you'll see this year are for two projects that we've adjusted our request from last year. I'm not going to go into details about Edmondson. We'll include a slide devoted to that for the board presentation that had received prior supplemental appropriation funding. So today we'll talk about Ben Franklin, but for the next iteration, I will include a slide on Edmondson. But previously for both those projects, we had requested about 168 million for a full renovation addition. Well, renovation addition at Ben Franklin. Edmondson was renovation mostly. For Ben Franklin, it was a renovation addition, and we are modifying that request to be 2 projects instead, because knowing that we only receive about 25 million in CIP funding per year, we didn't feel confident that the state would ever move forward with approving it, given the price tag of 168 million. So we've scaled back both projects. And for Ben Franklin specifically, instead of a full renovation addition, we're going to break it up into 2 projects. There's going to be a $9 million modular that we're requesting this fiscal year. And that'll add about 20 classrooms to that overutilized campus. And then in out years, we'll request a multisystemic project with some academic improvements. And that'll have a price tag of about 25 million. And we'll request multiple years of funding for that project. So this year, it's just the modular. And then in the out years, we'll have that additional component, which will update some of the systems such as fire safety, an elevator replacement, HVAC, windows, doors, locker room upgrades, adding an addition to the gym. So that is a high school sized gym. Right now it's severely undersized. We would renovate the cafeteria to help right size that as well. We do CTE upgrades and then a breezeway between the modular and main building, as well as a secure vestibule. So again, the big transition is going from a full renovation addition, downgrading it just because we know realistically the funding, it wasn't going to happen. So let's go through all of our major projects now and when they're opening. Burley is slated to open this coming summer as a replacement building. The program is currently located in Thurgood Marshall. Marie G. Faring has 2 projects happening. They have the Early Learning Annex, which is the red rectangle, and then they have a 2-story 20 classroom modular in blue. The annex comes online this coming summer, and the annex and the modular is approximately January 26. Northeast houses the Vanguard program, and they are currently in swing at the Thurgood Marshall building. Their renovated building will be open January 26. Another addition to this year's CIP request is a modular for Lakeland, who has been overcrowded for many years. And so this will help address their overcrowding. It will be a 20 classroom modular on their site, replacing the existing 10 classroom modular. Frederick Douglass campus, which will house Frederick Douglass and Joseph Briscoe, will open August 26. That's part of the 21st Century Buildings program. Commodore John Rogers, also 21st Century funds. That'll open January 27. They're currently in swing at the Southeast building. Armistead Gardens, significant overcrowding, specifically because of the Latino population. That'll open August 27. City College, who is currently still at their site, but will be swinging to UB, will be opening August 28. City Springs, that one's a little more complicated. City Springs building is across the street from the vacant Lombard building. We're going to demolish the vacant building, build a new school, and then City Springs will move across the street to their new school, aiming for January 28 there. Western and Poly will receive their renovated spaces. Western will happen first. They will move into their renovated space August 28, and then 2 years later, Poly will move in 2030. They're each going to take turns swinging at Northwestern building after Frederick Douglass moves back to theirs in summer 26. For Ben Franklin, as I said, we've shifted the project, and so at the end of all those pieces, at the modular, the multiple years of funding and projects will be completed, anticipated August 2032, and for Edmondson, January 2032. We also want to share that Furley and City Springs will be net zero because we've been awarded grants from the Maryland Energy Association to fund the installation of photovoltaic panels. Air conditioning is always an important topic, so we just want to note that as of June 1st, 2024, all classrooms have some form of AC. Some of them are temporary, such as window units or vertical package units, but the district is moving towards installing central HVAC systems in all of our buildings. And with that, we would like to request board approval for the projects we've proposed here, which would be $172 million from state CIP funds, $199 from state Built to Learn funds, $19 million from city CIP funds, and then 9.9 from the city, the required match that the city must do for Built to Learn projects. Any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. I'm sorry, I had to plug up my computer. I'll open the floor for questions from the committee. Commissioner Parker?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm sorry. Thank you for your presentation. One of my questions, do we have to reserve funds for the swing schools? I know the schools that we're using as swings are kind of older schools as well. Are they in pretty decent upkeep, and is there any funding needed to keep them up since we are using them regularly now?
Yeah, so I will let Cindy reply to that, but we have received significant funding from supplemental appropriations to bring those spaces up to where they need to be. I'm thinking specifically of the Northwestern building. But Cindy, do you want to talk about the funding for swing space?
Yeah, so Cindy Smith, I'm the Executive Director for Facilities Planning, Design, and Construction. One of the board actions that was taken, it was either around March or April, was to approve a supplemental appropriation funding for some of our swing spaces, as well as some of the gap that we have in the funds for between Built to Learn and how much City College and Poly and Western are going to cost. Though technically money in swing space isn't capital eligible, so it had to come from a different source than the capital improvement program money.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any additional, I don't see any other hands. Okay. Thank you so much. Are we transitioning to you, Cindy? No? Okay. Well, we are transitioning to
You got Monique for this next one, I believe, so not me.
Okay. Good morning, Monique.
Good morning, Commissioner Roberts. Okay, I'm going to get through this pretty quickly. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Monique Rumo. I'm the Executive Director of Operations, here to present the Comprehensive Maintenance Plan. This is all the work that happens once we own and operate, once all systems and buildings are handed over to our maintenance teams. And so the CMP aligns with board priorities 2 and 3. And this is the agenda. It just goes through all the different things that we're going to go through, so you're able to just jump to any sections you want in your leisure time. And so the purpose of the comprehensive maintenance plan is just to show our strategic overview. It is a requirement from the state that all LEAs submit this by October 15th of each year. And it's our opportunity to highlight the things that we're doing across operations to impact student education. And so we have 4 guiding principles that we use to frame our strategic direction. We're going to really hone in on the improving our investments towards the end of the presentation with a focus on our students. But it is when anyone is asking, well, how are you making decisions? What's guiding you? This is what we direct them to. And then there are some strategic focus areas that we hone in on. These are things that are within our control that we're regardless of resources, capacity, funding, that we believe that we can do across our different teams. And these things aren't arbitrary. They're rooted in the Association of Physical Plant Administrators standards for helping agencies determine how well they're maintaining their buildings or the level of service that they're providing for their buildings. And so this is a slide that we've shown the last several years. It goes through our strategic actions. It is a living slide. The one thing that we have expanded on is we're focusing on these things because they're within our control, with the focus on improving our efficiency and our effectiveness. So all the slides that you see after this are around our staff development, how we're doing with our preventive maintenance program, and the things we do to support with project prioritization. And so one of the things that we're focusing on is our in-house skill development. That's huge because it does allow us to be more self-sufficient, have a faster response time, and we can better control the quality of work that is delivered when we're not waiting or having to go behind contractors. The second thing is asset tagging. And so being able to put barcodes or QR codes on all of our systems and then associate that particular system to a work order allows us to better track the health of our systems, but then also that plays a role in the documentation that we have to submit to the state when we're submitting for capital projects. And then the other thing is this is Building X and smart assets. So our work order system now has modules that can pull in sensors across our different systems. And one of the things we're focusing on is putting in sensors for our pipes so that we can get ahead of things. So let's say that a pipe ruptures in a building, we're able to see the flow of water early, and we can try and reduce the amount of damage that would cause, because we would get immediate alerts through these modules. And how we're measuring our success. So earlier I mentioned the Association of Physical Plant Administrators. We would take our data and we would put that up against the different standards and see how we're doing. But then also the state every year goes throughout the entire state and they assess our buildings through the maintenance effectiveness assessments. And what we want to see annually is no less than adequate. So that means that we get a score somewhere between 70 and 79%. They score us on 23 categories. And the reason why this is critical is because when you're hearing stories or folks are trying to make comparisons to how we're doing to other states, this is a good place to go. So in FY23, we were at 70%. That was right in line with the state's average at 71%. And then in 2024, that was just posted on the IAC's website. We were at 72%, and the state's average was also at 72%. So again, when folks are looking to compare and see how we're doing against other LEAs, this is a great place to go. This is just our high-level organizational chart showing the COO and the 3 executive directors. The comprehensive maintenance plan work really hones in on the work that is done under the executive director of facilities, along with the 3 directors and about 10 or so teams that really lift the work out in the field and on the ground. And so this team, they maintain 144 buildings. We have 294 positions and a $45 million budget. A couple of things that I would like to highlight, starting with the positions, is this time last year we had 105 vacancies, and we worked very hard with our HC partners on recruiting and interviewing. And so we were able to reduce those vacancies by half. Also, earlier we mentioned, I mentioned developing our in-house skill and staff. So we've reduced our the amount that we're spending on contract services from 60% to 43%, and we've increased our in-house allocation from 31% to 42%. Again, that's just showing that the things and the strides that we're making, we're actually seeing that happen in the field. There was one of our operational things that were under contracted services, which is why we saw an increase in the operational piece. So you saw this or a portion of this slide in the CIP. We want to make sure that we show these because capital and maintenance, they're not separate. When you have capital work, you always want to make sure that you're also funding the work to maintain those buildings and systems. And so again, Maureen spoke to this. We see our current budget. We see what we should be funded annually, and that there's a $375 million deficit according to the industry standard. And so even though we're underfunded, there's still some great work happening. So we'll get into some of our maintenance efforts. These are our top 10 activities that our facilities team performs. I'll hone in on our walks and our HVAC work. Our walks moved from position 10 on this graph to number 3 this year because we put an emphasis with our teams that we should make sure that we're putting our eyes on the work out in the field, that they're actively working. It's something that the IAC has also been honing in on with the LEAs in terms of us putting our eyes on what's happening in the field. But then with the HVAC work, this is our most critical work. It's our most expensive work. And so our preventive maintenance work orders have increased. That's the majority of this increase from that 45% to 30%. And so we're just putting a lot of emphasis on maintaining those systems so that instruction isn't impacted. And just based upon the amount of work that's done, 43% of those work orders are completed by contractors, while the other 57% is completed in-house. Last year, the data showed that we were 25% contractors and 75% in-house. The reason for this shift is previously, we weren't able to assign work orders to our contracted staff, and we realized that our teams were assigning work orders to themselves. So our new work order system now allows us to assign the work orders appropriately. So we're better capturing the work of our contractors versus our team. And we're talking about preventive maintenance, and so which is critical for maintaining an older infrastructure. So we've increased the amount of preventive maintenance work orders that we're doing, and the amount of reactive work orders that we're doing has decreased. And this just hones in. This is a graphical representation so that you can see what it has looked like over the last couple of fiscal years. So in FY22, we were at 22% with our preventive maintenance. And then in FY23, we went to 45%. And now in FY24, we're at 53%, which is what we want to see. And industry standard says we should be somewhere between 75 and 100%. But our work order system allows us to see how we're performing against our peers who are also using this work order system. So the top 20 folks, 20% of school systems, K-12 users, 47% of their work orders are preventive maintenance. And then the top 10 users, 67%. So you can see the best of the best aren't even in that green section. So when we're looking and we're setting goals and we're looking at how can we improve, we're trying to be within that range between that 20 and 10%. So as long as we're moving towards closer to that 10%, we're in a good place. And so what does all of that mean? We focus in on our preventive maintenance efforts because it is important that when you aren't sufficiently funded and you have an aging system, that you have an intensive PM program. And so again, we've increased the amount of preventive work that we're doing across the district. And what that means is that we are moving in a more proactive state, which is what we want to see. There's an industry standard, and this is also one of the categories that we're scored on by the state, what percentage of your work orders are closed within 30 days. And so we're at 83%. And our peer median, they're at 82%. So that's a great thing. I will say last year, if you looked at that presentation, that we were at 93%. That changes in what we did with the HVAC. So when we're talking about improving efficiency and effectiveness, there's only so far that you can go with that with your capacity and resources before you start to negatively impact other areas of your work. And so this is one area where we'd be paying attention. How much can we change in terms of generating our PM work orders before we start to impact our ability to close those work orders? So this next piece, we have aging systems, and that is why, again, the preventive maintenance program is important. And what I want to call out here is that last year for our boilers, give me a second, I just had that here. For our boilers, we had 17 boilers that were beyond their life cycle. We come into this fiscal year and we had 7 more systems, 7 more boilers go beyond their life cycle. The same for roofs. I'll just call that one out. We were at 47 last year and we had 10 more roofs go beyond their life cycle. Again, it's important that we're maintaining these well because we don't have the funding to replace them like we'd want to. But that is where the capital improvement program and the funds that we get through Healthy Schools funds, when we're looking at these systems, we look at the systemic projects and how we can group them all together in order to be able to fund the replacement of these systems through our capital program. I will call out chillers because chillers, it was at 12 last year. And so this year we're at 11. So we did at least get one of those projects done. Now, on to some feel-good stuff. So last year we introduced this career mapping in last year's CMP, and what we want to hone in on is our intern and apprentice program. So what you see is if you look at building automation, we actually grew in that area. We did not offer building automation for our students, but we were able to offer all the blue checks plus building automation. You see our interns in the program for this year, and then our apprentices at the bottom. And basically, we went from 21 students in our program last year to 38. 14 of those 38 are CTE students. And I believe we actually doubled the number of CTE students this year from 7 to 14. Right there at the bottom where we talk about permanent hires. So from our CTE students who completed the program this past summer, we have hired 4 of them permanently. We also hired a student from YouthWorks. He's working with transportation as a mechanic, and there has been an offer made to our student who came through building automation. So that is worth celebrating. And that is the end of our CMP presentation for this year. Any questions?
Thank you, Monique, for the presentation. I'll open the floor for questions from the committee. Commissioner Muhammad.
Thank you. I appreciate the presentation and the work, both on this and the work that we are doing. The thing that stood out was the increase around the use of contractors, which seems to be up about 18% or so. And I understood why we're doing it. Just want to get an idea of what is costing us. So if we're giving about 18% more work to contractors than we were in prior years, how much is that costing us, and how is it affecting the overall capacity of the work that we're offering to our schools?
So I'm going to, let me go back to make sure that, so we're giving less work to our contractors. We went from 60% to 43%, and we've increased our in-house work.
So we've increased our in-house work. Great. Thanks. Thank you.
Yes.
So that clears that up. But with that, understanding that we've been able to decrease or increase the capacity of our work, fiscally, how is it impacting us? Are we able to do more and have more impact? And since we've been able to do that, how are we going to go about sustaining it or even taking it a little further to 70% if possible?
We've been able to pull in the less rigorous work. So for instance, in our 21st century buildings, those systems are more complicated. And so we use our contractors for that work. But for like filter changes, some of the things that we can do in-house, where it would cost us $150 to send a contractor out to change filters, we've pulled that in-house to help reduce the cost. And if there are parts of the question I haven't answered, we can make sure that we follow up with a more extensive response for you.
And Monique, if I can just answer, so
Mhm.
Lynette Washington, Chief Operating Officer, I think that one of the parts that's also important to say is that there is going to be contractors work that will always happen because the specialized labor force compensation is higher than what some of our team members make here for the district, right? Higher than some of our directors. So some of those are HVAC. In some of those particular areas, those folks that do some of the more specialized work, we would not be able to attract them to the district to work for us on our team. So there is a percentage of the work, elevators, that's another very specialized body of work. There's a percentage of the work that will always be contractual work. And there's some work that as we do training and some of those different things, we can be able to bring those in-house. But I do want to say the more specialized labor, we just can't compete in the market to attract those kind of folks to work for city schools.
I appreciate your response. I appreciate the wisdom. I think it'll be helpful, and I don't need this as a response, but in future years, being able to understand clearly where we're spending money with contractors, looking at the sectors that we're spending money and looking at others that we own completely ourselves, and we only use contractors when needed and why. But I appreciate it, and I also want to highlight the great work that you guys are doing with our students and making sure they continue to be a part of our community. So thank you.
Any additional questions for the CMP? Seeing no hands, thank you so much for the presentation. Are there any questions related to this week's compliance reports? Item 301, policy DBCA, long range financial planning. Item number 3.02, compliance report, policy DCB, debt management. And 3.03, policy GBM, temporary employment. Commissioner Coy?
Yeah, I do have a few questions, and maybe I'll start with sort of the shortest one. The debt management report, compliance report for DCB. My question was related to the recent changes. I'll say recent changes. The past 3 or 4 years certainly have had different interest rates than the prior decade or so, and I'm curious how that impacts the items being discussed here in debt management and debt servicing. Obviously, it doesn't impact the state limits that are sort of outlined, but curious what implications that has.
Yes, Commissioner, this is Mary Ann Cox. I'd like to respond to your inquiry. Please know that the bond issuances noted here were issued in 2009 and 2011. They were all fixed rate, so our interest rate has not changed since that time. Both of these bond issuances were issued with a sinking fund, so that we will pay the proceeds of the 2009 off in December 2024, and we will pay off the the 2011 QSEBs in December 2025. So the fluctuation in the interest rates did not affect this.
Yeah, and so just to be clear, it would have implications on any new bond funding or obligations, but on those prior ones, there's been no impact, which is, I appreciate understanding that. Thank you.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
You had an additional question, Commissioner Coy?
Yes, but I guess maybe if anybody else has a question on that compliance report first, I'm happy to.
What's your additional question?
I don't have any additional questions on that one, but I can move on to another compliance report.
I put them all on the table. That's why I'm asking. I read them all.
Yeah, well, so I guess if nobody has an additional question on that one, I'm happy to,
Commissioner Coy, please offer your question.
Okay, so in terms of the, looking at some of the blueprint for funding and now I'm looking at long range DBCA report on long range financial planning. As it sort of identifies in the challenges, I would just like to understand a little bit more, about some of the level of concern that you all are feeling about the, it says some of the challenges is the legislative appropriations and any economic downturns or other items that could impact what is being projected here. I would love to just understand a little more voiceover on some of that challenge or concern. And specifically, I guess, relating to the board will be adopting a legislative policy for this upcoming legislative session and wanting to have a sense for your recommendations or the degree to which we should prioritize certain types of board priorities.
Thanks for the question, Commissioner. I'm Sandy Jacobs. I'm the district's Blueprint Implementation Coordinator. As we've mentioned in DBCA and as you've heard in other presentations, if the legislature sticks to the pattern that is laid out in the blueprint legislation, we would continue to see increased funds. But, not looking too far into the tea leaves, seeing comments that the governor has made recently, and other things we know about the availability of funds going forward, as you said, there's reason for caution, and we certainly aren't counting any of those chickens before they hatch. It does very much seem like we'll have to see, what each legislative session brings in terms of appropriations. What we don't know is whether the governor and the Accountability and Implementation Board are planning to come to the legislative session with, a specific set of things that perhaps they would slow the implementation of and therefore correspondingly slow those funding streams, or whether they are going to, come with just sort of looking to sort of nip around the edges for ways that would slow down funding. For example, they slowed down the Tier 2 pre-K funding last year, right, in a way that didn't impact most districts, but did impact us where we're already serving some of those students. So I think, partly we are in a little bit of a wait and see what's going to get proposed by the governor's office. But I think the key thing, we are very, very focused, and we benefit more heavily on the concentration of poverty funding and than many other districts do. And so staying focused on the funding streams, I think that may not be as much, sort of across the state beneficial. We are farther ahead in our pre-K. We're certainly more have many more schools benefiting from the CPG funding. So keeping our eyes on making sure that those don't take hits in ways that may feel like are evenly spread across the state, but in fact really aren't. I think that's what we are most, cautious about as we look forward to the next legislative session.
And on this question about the concentrations of poverty, are there there was discussions previously about alternative methodologies that would be better representative of actual concentrations of poverty. Any possibility for progress on that, or are we sort of feeling like we're trying to just preserve what is there and not sort of make it more accurate, I guess, to lack a better word for that?
Yeah, so we were very pleasantly surprised that in the very end of the legislative session last year, as part of the Governor's Enough Act, they did sort of resurrect the neighborhood indicators of poverty and given the Governor's Office of Children the mandate now to study what is feasible under neighborhood indicators of poverty, sort of not wanting to go forward with the study of that MSDE had done, but certainly keeping the idea of it alive. We've had some conversations with the Governor's Office of Children around that. They, I think, understand how the undercounting impacts districts like Baltimore City. I think more than anything, it's going to come down to the price tag. So we think the interest in better counting is still there, but whether there'll be comfort, with attaching the price tag to it remains to be seen. But it is very much alive at this moment, which is good news.
I actually have a question related to policy GBM. Having this line of sight into the capacity we utilize temporary employees to support our school-based staff. I'd be interested, how do we use this information from a price point, from a capacity perspective, in supporting school leaders do their look ahead for budget planning for the upcoming school years? I know it's something that oftentimes is raised at the board level is around school leaders feeling a pressure to sunset employees because of the fickle nature of funding. So year over year, how are we looking at our use of temporary employees? And while supportive in our school spaces, it's also disruptive when our school leaders can't maintain them because of financial constraints. So how are we as a system looking at that? Was that captured by anyone on the team?
Good morning,
Anybody?
Madam Vice
Thank you,
Chair. This is,
Jonathan.
yeah, I got the question. I'll make sure that human capital gets it.
I appreciate you. Is there no one from Human Capital on? Dr. Junkins, did you capture that as well? Are we the only ones that drank coffee this morning, friends?
We can make sure we get it to them. I don't see anybody from Human
Yes.
Capital on.
I apologize. I could not get off mute. Yes, we have it as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Mohammed. You're muted. Are you talking?
Sorry about that. I had a concern with GBM as well. It was centered around our ability to maintain the high cost of using these staff persons, but particularly looking at 3 places. And I know there are a high student count, but if we look at Leaf Walk, Academy for College and Career, and the Office of Early Child, each of these sites are using more than 40 contractor staff persons. And in an effort to sustain the work that we're putting into our staff with regards to development, how do we assure that that investment being made this year reflects next year when we're using this amount of temporary staff personnel at one particular site, being over 40 staff persons. So hopefully that's captured. I know we can't answer it right now, but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mohammed. I don't see any additional hands. So we're gonna transition to procurement. Also, Dr. Junkins, as a matter of record, there are no public comments for this committee meeting today. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Thank you so much. We will now transition to procurement.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Shabray Matthews, the Director of Procurement, and there are 6 items for consideration on the procurement agenda today. So first up is 1501 Detweiler Roofing LLC. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of a competitively solicited contract with Detweiler Roofing LLC in the total amount of $1,162,700. The contract provides roof replacement services at Tench Tillman Pre-K through 8 School number 13.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing no hands, we can transition to the next item.
Next item is 1502 Fire Alarm Installation, Inspection, Repair, and Preventive Maintenance. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval to piggyback a competitively solicited contract with Convergent Technologies LLC, Arc Systems Inc., and AES Electrical Inc., doing business as Free State Electric. To provide fire alarm installation, inspection, repair, and preventive maintenance. The estimated annual contract amount is $400,000. The contract term is October 9th, 2024 through March 31st, 2028.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing no hands, we can transition to the next item.
Next is 1503 Fire and Water Cleanup and Restoration Services. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval to increase the contract amount with Infinity Environmental Inc., BMS Cat of Maryland LLC, and Modulus LLC. This contract provided emergency fire and water cleanup and remediation services at various city schools locations on an as-needed basis. The board is requested to approve an increase in the estimated annual contract amount from $2 million to $3 million, an increase of $1 million annually. The contract term is August 25th, 2024 through August 24th, 2026.
Commissioner Coy?
Is this item in response to some of the incidences from the summer, or is this sort of more general ongoing anticipation of need to respond?
Thank you, Commissioner Coy. Hello, everyone. My name is Maurice Gaskin. I'm the Interim Executive Director of Facilities. And yes, Commissioner, this contract is around not just the events that occurred over the summer, but in response to any of our risk management items that we may have for city schools.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Commissioner Parker?
Good morning. Thank you again. As a new commissioner, my question is, and I'll get with Vice Chair offline, but am I to assume that these were projected spending items that are captured in our current budget?
So those items are based on historical information, and yes, it's projected, and then give us a cushion because we might have a major event that can cost up to 7 figures and everything. So that's why the amount increase is high.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you understand the question, and Vice Chair Roberts. What I'm saying is if we approve these expenditures, this is technically money that we already thought we were going to spend. Is that, or is it, or no, this is money that is different than what was captured in the fiscal year 2025 budget?
Do you understand the question, Maurice?
Yes. For me to give a more comprehensive detail information, I will have to come back and circle back around and respond how that interacts with our budget, because I think Courtney just jumped on. He could probably give me an assist on how that actually works overall with this specific cost string. Thank you, Courtney.
I don't, Courtney, are you there? This is Allison. So when departments, oh, go ahead, Courtney.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I think I understand the question, and just to assist what I was going to say is that these items, when they come up in the board letters, are generally items that have already been budgeted as part of that fiscal year's budget. So if it's something you're not going to, by approving the procurement, you're not approving in addition to the budget. Anything that comes in that form would be like a supplemental appropriation, like the one we did earlier for nursing. So it'd be a specific supplemental appropriation that specifies that we're going to be adding to the budget. So approving the procurement doesn't mean that you're approving like an overspend or a change in the budget plan from what was initially done.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner Parker?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Maurice. Shabari, we can transition to the next item.
Okay, the next item is 1504, IG Burton and Company, Inc. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of a contract with IG Burton and Company, Inc. Through Bluebird Corporation to provide school buses and school bus repair services to the Office of People Transportation. The estimated total contract amount is $1,540,000. $1,540,100. The contract term is October 9th, 2024 through August 15th, 2025.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing no hands, we can transition to the next item.
Okay, next item is 1801, Ice Miller LLP. The Chief Legal Officer requests the board's approval to increase the contract amount with outside counsel at Ice Miller LLP to continue to provide legal representation in litigation matters pending in the Circuit Court for Baltimore City, including Giovanni Patterson versus Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners. This second amendment proposes to increase the contract amount from $350,000 to $650,000, an increase of $300,000. In addition, the second amendment proposes to extend the contract term to June 30th, 2025.
Any questions by the committee? Seeing no hands, we can transition to the last item.
Yep, last item is 1901, body-worn camera, the body-worn camera program with Axon Enterprise, Inc. The Chief of Schools requests the board's approval to contract with Axon Enterprise, Inc. to provide body-worn cameras and related services to the Baltimore City School Police. The estimated total contract amount is $1,113,255.93. The contract term is September 25th, 2024 through December 20th, 2027 with 2 one-year renewal options.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, I think that is it for our procurement review today. Thank you so much, Shabari.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you all for attending today's committee meeting. This is officially end of the meeting, end of call. You all have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
great day.